The 2025 Australian Grand Prix has left us with more questions than answers. And one of the big burning questions is Liam Lawson shit? To start to answer that question, first we need to summarize his first ever race weekend with Red Bull Racing alongside Max Verstappen. In qualifying, Liam gets knocked out in Q1 and lines up P18 for the race, while his teammate qualifies P3, put the car on the second row. In the main race, Liam, instead of tearing through the field, he is stuck behind the Haas of Esteban Ocon for nearly first half of the race, not exactly half, more like 2/5, which is embarrassing. I know that the conditions were tricky, we'll talk about that in a while. While Max Verstappen makes a great move around turn 3 to get second position from Oscar Piastri, and he was constantly in the mix to challenge for the win. Liam Lawson, on the other hand, he was comfortably running outside of the point scoring positions, and on lap 47, I think he was like P14 or something like that. He, outside of turn 2, I think, he crashes out, and that's the end of his first Grand Prix, while Max Verstappen finishes the race in P2, less than a second behind race winner Lando Norris. And to give you a perspective of how impressive Verstappen's performance in the season opener is, in qualifying, he was half a second behind Lando Norris. Yet in the main race, somehow, I know the weather and the tire strategy played a role in this, but somehow in the main race, he was less than a second behind Lando Norris in checkered flag, and he was right there to take the win. Obviously, Max Verstappen is literally the second coming of Jesus Christ, so I don't expect Liam to right away perform at his level, which is, asking literally the impossible out of the young Kiwi. But what about P10? What about P9? You can definitely take a point or two away from your competitors. A lot of people across the Formula One world are giving excuses on behalf of Liam. They are saying that it's his first ever Grand Prix, the conditions were tricky, the Red Bull car is difficult to drive, blah, blah, blah. We will see in Shanghai, he will pick it up in the Chinese Grand Prix, and as the season will progress, he will be better and he will be as good as or almost as good as Max Verstappen, because being as good as Max Verstappen in the same car is impossible. Let's be honest. Now, I am a little bit skeptical towards that because I don't think the upcoming races in this season will be kind to Liam Lawson. And let me explain to you why. There is one big reason, and the reason is the Red Bull curse. What is the Red Bull curse, you may ask? Nah, I'm joking. The Red Bull curse can be broken into two parts. First point, the first part of the Red Bull curse is that the car has a very narrow operating window. I think a lot of people know this. I think at this point, this is common knowledge. If you want to challenge for wins and championships in a Red Bull, the car has to be set up in that narrow operating window. Otherwise, you're going to lose performance. That's the first thing. And the reason why it is a part of the Red Bull curse is because typically in Formula One, the driver and the car meet in the middle. The car is set up in a certain way to suit the driver. There are certain things that a driver likes about a car, which can be, added via the setup changes. And similarly, the driver also has to make some sacrifices in their driving style and their tendencies. They have to change their approach in how they drive the car around the circuit to meet in the middle. And because of that narrow operating window issue with the Red Bull cars, you kind of cannot meet in the middle. You cannot even think that it is possible. You have to unlearn your current driving style entirely and rise up to the occasion to literally the second coming of Jesus Christ, which is impossible. So that's the first Red Bull curse. The second Red Bull curse is that in that narrow operating window that we just talked about, the car is unstable. Liam Lawson himself has talked about it in the Pit Stop podcast. He talked about the car is fronty and, it has a lot of front grip and stuff like that. Alexander Albon, he went to some podcast and he was talking about how driving the Red Bull is like, having your mouse sensitivity to the highest. In layman's terms, the Red Bull car is too sensitive to throttle and steering inputs. Like that's basically is the problem with the instability of the Red Bull car in that narrow operating window. That's the second Red Bull curse. The car is very sensitive to throttle and steering inputs, meaning you have to be millimeter perfect. If you're squeezing the throttle pedal and you're off by half a millimeter or something like that, you're going to spin the car. If you are like driving the car around the track and you make half a millimeter mistake while turning the steering wheel, you may go outside the track, you may oversteer or understeer or something like that. Now Max Verstappen, being the second coming of Jesus Christ, he has like nanometer level of perfection. Like it's unfathomable for common folk like you and I to even comprehend the driving prowess that the Dutchman possesses. Like it's literally impossible how he drives that car. And by the virtue of the Red Bull curse, first you have to unlearn your current driving style to adapt to Red Bull. There's no meeting in the middle, as I explained. And number two, the car is fucking unstable. So when you have these two huge pressing problems and you have a bad start, I mean, the Australian GP was terrible in all aspects. There is not a lot of positives that Liam can take away from this. If he had at least brought the car home, even if he was dead last, at least he could say that, well, the conditions were tricky. The car is tricky to drive. At least I managed to bring the car home. He failed to do that. And I know a lot of people are going to say it like he was driving on slicks. Many people were driving on the slicks during the rain. Not everyone crashed. So I don't know. So every way the first race weekend could go wrong, it did go wrong for Liam Lawson. And his confidence has to be at all-time low. In the upcoming race in China, there is an easy way of knowing whether Liam is, on the rise or is in the same level or is in the decline. I think he will meet the same fate of Sergio Perez, and there's a quick way of knowing in the Shanghai Grand Prix, in the Chinese Grand Prix. If he spins in any of the practice sessions, if he struggles to put in a competitive lap time, if he oversteers or understeers around the corner, or if he struggles to stick to the ideal racing line while taking corners in the practice sessions, these are the signs, especially in FP3. If he does that, there is a significant chance that the first weekend, whatever happened in Australia, in Melbourne, it's probably going to repeat in China. So the chances of Liam Lawson quickly adapting his driving style to fit the narrow operating window of Red Bull and have the millimeter level perfection similar to Max Verstappen, who is literally the second coming of Jesus Christ, I don't think it can happen that quickly. I'm not taking anything away from Liam Lawson. I know that he is a good driver and shit like that. He's a rookie. Not as much of a rookie as others were on the grid. Oliver Bearman bought the car home. Kimi Antonelli went from P16 to P4. He finished right behind his teammate. I have to make another complete video about Kimi Antonelli. Get subscribed if you're interested in that type of stuff. So it's not necessarily all to be blamed on the car itself. Like, there's a little bit of blame that you have to give to Liam Lawson. And in China, as I mentioned, if he spins or runs wide or something like that in FP3, chances are he's gonna do the same in qualifying and in the main race. So the bigger question should be, who is going to replace the New Zealander mid-season? So based on what we have seen in the Australian GP, first option is we have Isaac Hadjar, who did qualify well. He qualified P11. And the second option, which is a better option, is Yuki Tsunoda. He qualified P5. He was competitive throughout the race. He was screwed over by the strategy, which is why he couldn't score any points. But I think he could have scored some nice points, like at least P6 or P7, at least. because that's how strong his base was and that's how well he was driving. So obviously, I think for Helmut Marko, the logical option is Franco Colapinto. So we will see if Franco gets the nod from the Red Bull bosses to replace Liam Lawson mid-season and partner with Max Verstappen for the remainder of the year. We will see what happens. I think probably until Bahrain, we have to wait and see how Liam progresses. If he doesn't progress that much until Bahrain, if he's not challenging for the podium positions or at least the top 5 in Bahrain, then they will probably take him to the back of the garage, put a bullet in his head, and bury him in the desert. Franco Colapinto, you are next. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.